everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the SheSight podcast. I'm your host, Disha Nishal, an IB student at Prometheus, Noida. At SheSight, we celebrate the diverse perspectives, achievements, and stories of women around us. And on this podcast, we delve into interesting aspects of a woman's life. I'm thrilled for the upcoming discussion about emotional, intellectual, and sentimental processes a woman goes through. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with two incredible people who have dedicated their careers to supporting and nurturing the growth of teenagers and young adults in various capacities. First up, we have Ms. Shreya Austin, an esteemed educator with over 15 years of experience in working with teenagers and young adults. Ms. Shreya holds a master's degree in history from St. Stephen's College, bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her role. Through her passion for education, she has empowered countless students to explore the depths of history and develop critical thinking skills that extend far beyond the classroom. Joining us next, we have Ms. Gujral, a compassionate counselor who has also dedicated her life to guiding and supporting young adults and teens through life's challenges. With a deep understanding of psychology and myriad forms of practical experience, Ms. Hargun has become a trusted confidant for many, providing invaluable support and guidance as they navigate the complexities of early adulthood. Together, Ms. Shreya and Ms. Hargun bring a unique blend of wisdom. So let's dive right in and explore the insights that they have to offer on education, mental health, and the journey of discovery during these formative years. Welcome, Ms. Shreya and Ms. Hargun.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to sincerely thank both of you for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you at this podcast. So, as the quote goes, all great things start with simple thoughts. What are some of the thoughts that come to your mind when I first mentioned the word self-esteem, and do you think your gender has influenced your perception of it?
Well, I think gender identities are very closely linked to our esteem and our sense of self and our sense of self-worth. So definitely as a woman, the self-esteem that I associate myself with is very closely linked to how I value myself as a woman. How I value myself, not just, and when I talk about womanhood, it's not just, a singular concept of a woman,
Right.
but me as a daughter, as a mother, as a working adult, in all of those roles. So self-esteem is then linked to each of those roles that you carry.
Definitely.
And obviously under the umbrella of being a woman in the world that we live in. So I think, yes, definitely they are linked to each other.
I know. So I think I actually very well agree with where Ms. Shreya is coming from. For me, if I was to possibly link the two up together, I mean, who are we but not our experiences, right? And our experiences are linked to our gender.
Definitely.
How we were raised, for example, the kind of experiences that we shared, while we were growing up, the kind of choices we made, for example, and the kind of choices that we were probably not given an opportunity to make, all had a very, very important role to play in the way we built up to who we are today. And of course, that's exactly where our self-esteem and our self-respect comes from.
Definitely. I think even though at this age, even I started to realize a lot of the experiences that I have are very sort of narrowed down to being a girl and to actually being a STEM, woman in STEM, etc. But I feel like even from the formative years, there's these dialogues that come your way and they sort of do alter the path or the trajectory of where you want to go with your careers as women as well.
Absolutely. And also whether you want to fall in line with those narratives
Definitely.
or whether you want to go and accept the title of being a rebel. So either way, you could, tag the line, you could toe the line, and you could say, well, yes, this is the way I will live my life, and this is how I will behave, because as a girl, as a woman, this is how I'm supposed to be. Or you could choose to be a rebel, but the big question then is that being a rebel really? You know, if you're just trying to be yourself and not fall into a box and not agree to giving yourself a label, is it then, being a rebel, or is it just being yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, if you have to look at it like this, so here I am, who's probably had a way in which I've been raised, and there are certain things that I've been told are right, wrong, good, bad, ugly, and then I also reach a point in my life where I start to question them. I want to see merit in them, and I want to possibly just test the boundaries a bit harder and push them to figure out whether what I've been told or what I've been raised with is right for me. Forget anyone else for that matter. And that's where the first sense of agency comes in with respect to, okay, so it might just be the right thing for girls, or how I have been possibly, expressed or shared with. But at the same time, this doesn't make sense to me.
Definitely.
And that's enough for me to actually take a step back or a step forward to kind of change that for me.
Right. I also think that, society presents us with a lot of ideas of what you should be. And now you said like categorized and with labels and stuff. But I think the biggest responsibility that we do have is towards ourselves, what we want, what we actually strive for. So that brings me to a question around labels. Women are often called bossy or demanding. I'm sure as successful women, we hear these terms a lot. And even my conversations with other females who have, been at a level of expertise, they're kind of just okay with these words at this point. So whether it's bossy, demanding, whether it's too ambitious, overqualified, we all hear these terms. Or we hear someone else, hearing these terms. Or, even if it's like questions that are so stereotypical, like, like the other day I was hearing someone say, oh, she takes physics, she doesn't look like someone who could do physics. Or maybe even things like, how does she manage that position while having a husband and while having a child? So, do you want to share like any experiences where you had to like face this or seen someone else face it maybe?
So, there's something I was reading the other day which spoke about how it's good to be a difficult woman. Because the minute as a woman you ask a question, the minute you just choose to do something your way, you choose to stand up against the tide and say, well, no, I don't think this is okay. That's exactly when everybody else would call you a difficult person. And also, I really believe it's very important for women to be difficult, to ask the right questions, to take a stand for themselves, no matter how difficult it is to take that stand. And it is difficult to take that stand. It's not easy. It is very difficult to say, I could take very simple examples, right? Like for example, neither of us decided to change our maiden names, right? Simply because for me personally, I did not see any logic in changing my name just because I got married to a person, because I believe it doesn't change my identity as who I am. I don't have to change my name to show that I love someone or to show that I'm a part of another family as well as my own, right? But these are societal norms that are entrusted upon women. They're enforced upon women. And we as women are, the minute you question, there's something amiss with you, definitely, right? Everybody and nobody else does that. So if you're doing it, there's something wrong with you for asking those questions. Why can't you be like everybody else?
That's true. So this is deeply personal actually. So for having to possibly, in 4 months' time, for my life to change to becoming a widow, it's important for me to bring this up today. Because while we may feel like this is something that existed and that we've gone past, even as a young woman today, in these 4 months, a lot of things changed for me. In the way people viewed me, for example. In the way I carried myself, for example. In the way I questioned myself, for example, with respect to whether I should be the way I was or whether I should be another way. Imagine this is a well-educated, progressive woman talking, who also talks about mental health on all forums. And suddenly something brings her down. And it was important for me to question that in terms of what is it that's bringing me down, because I'm also coming from a family which is not supporting any sort of an idea or label or anything that I have to abide by. And yet there is a certain level of conditioning which is carried forward for generations, that something has gone a total miss. Now I'm talking about being in a relationship with a man for 17 long years, right? And what I hold for him is something so precious that this is the last thing that anyone, including me, can actually see myself go through. And yet, at the same time, it took me 4 months to come out of that and to bring myself to a place of awareness that I'm alive and there are things that I'm going to carry myself forward with as a whole, which also means that this label is something that is nothing.
Definitely. I think also these experiences to a great degree.
Yeah.
And first of all, I really appreciate you for sharing that. I think definitely these experiences are first of all hard to share as well. But it's such a sign of strength when you can talk about them because there's nothing to not talk about them for.
Absolutely.
And also these experiences, they do change a lot of things for us, but they can never really define us. They can't define our values or change them. And you talked about progressive, and no matter how modern you get, I feel like patriarchy has been so ingrained in the world itself that no matter how progressive even your family is, your in-laws are, you have to go through these things of even these internal battles that you fight.
Absolutely.
And don't you guys think that there's been such a glorification of these societal norms? Oh, why will you not wear like this Mangal Sutra? Don't you abide by this whole thing? And that even though that's such an old example, you can still see people go through that in a lot of different capacities. Like today, if it's not the Mangal Sutra, it's something more like an engagement ring, or it's something more a modernized version. But the narrative stays more or less the same.
True. That's true. And it's also a little sad and disheartening to note that women hold these and carry these forward.
Definitely.
And I would say that most women carry these forward, which is very ironic. Because even this discussion could be misconstrued as three very, very difficult women trying to break all the social norms.
Yeah.
But why should certain practices only be be followed by women?
Definitely.
Why should they only be applicable to women? Why should there not be something similar for men as well? And then it would just make so much more sense, right? So why is it important? And you have to, I'm a history person, so when these practices were created, there were very solid reasons for them.
True.
You need to go back into history and have that kind of just dig a little deeper to understand why some of these cultural norms were practiced when they were and how they are so redundant now.
Yeah.
Yet when we choose to carry them forward, all we're doing is we're carrying some form of patriarchy forward.
Definitely.
We're not clearly looking at what was the reason behind this, what was the logical reasoning behind this. But we're just kind of, looking at a very, very, look in a very, very minute way. We're just looking at a very superficial understanding of the cultural practice, and we're just pushing it forward and expecting young women to do it, and young women are following it, which is, I feel, sadder than anything else.
True. I feel like this convenient sort of setting that we actually push upon, these things have been followed for so long, so why question them, etc. And as you said, everything did have a logic to it. But I feel like now it's becoming more of a fad. Like even something as delicate as traditions or customs or rituals, when you can only see one of the genders performing all of these things, the other gender is just simply enjoying the whole thing of being at liberty, of not really being questioned about why they're not doing certain things for women as well.
Or they can do it by choice. And then they can be glorified for that too, if at all they choose to do it, for example.
Definitely. I think one of the examples that I'm reminded of is that during Karwa Chauth, which is a very the festival most of the people celebrate in North, when a man keeps this fast or this vrat, I think that's what you call it, during Karwa Chauth, everybody's like, oh my god, you've kept a vrat for your wife, that is so considerate, that is so sweet. And then that overshadows the whole thing about she's been keeping it for 16, 17 years. How have you not noticed it at that time? But yeah, I definitely think society has glorified a lot of these things. Even the double standards that the society has been so prevalent, yet nobody actually goes on to this intricate details and tries to change them.
True.
So, when we talk about the recognition of women's intellect, despite their capabilities and intelligence, women are often overlooked, whether it's by their peers, sometimes even by their teachers, and even by themselves, rather. How do you see this dynamic play out in educational settings, something both of you have a lot of experience with?
I've always felt like there is a lot of effort and time that we're spending now in terms of having to see how women can be empowered. And the other gender has been completely overlooked in the sense of how that bar needs to be raised from both sides.
Definitely.
So what's really starting to happen, or at least the conversations that have started to come to my office sometimes are, isn't it too much for us to take on our plate already? Like there was an entire drive where we were really wanting to be like this person who's out there, equal rights, equal responsibilities. But the point is, equal rights came in, equal responsibilities kind of got completely missed out. And so this woman now who is empowered in the sense of having to take on a role which is beyond her house, for example, and she's very, very powerful and feeling very powerful about it, still walks back to the same household, which is expected also to be taken care of by her. And just in case the house is not in place, it's on her. It's her home, which is not in place. So something's gone a terrible miss in the sense that the same sort of an empowerment and discussion and responsibility needs to be taken over from both genders. We are not in the fight and flight mode anymore, where the man gets the fire and the woman cooks or takes care of us from the animals around us. It's a space where everyone comes in equally, contributes equally, and raises a family together.
Definitely.
Over time, I think just when the first question that was asked with respect to our self-esteem also comes how we own our bodies, how we are more comfortable in our skins, hopefully, if we are empowered, which also gives us more rights over us with respect to what is it that we choose, whether we choose to have a partner, whether we choose to have a child. These were questions that never came up before because a lot of our rights over our bodies were not our own. And of a male dominant figure, maybe in the first household that you were born in to the second household that you were sent to. I'm sorry, but that's true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I will agree. I think, society does want to condition women with this sense of guilt. But no matter what dynamic you're in, they will always leave this, whether it's a look, whether it's an expression, or whether it's a dialogue, you always get something to ponder upon and, even wonder what I'm doing is actually right in the first place. And this sort of guilt and sort of self-doubt actually brings a lot of students, workers, anybody down. Whether it's, statements like, I don't think I'm a good daughter, I don't think I'm a good mother, or even I don't think I'm built enough for this, I'm not smart enough for this. And have you ever seen these situations manifest, whether it's in your own life or maybe a student that you're dealing with?
Well, mom guilt is a very real thing. And, I could talk for a very long time on it. It's a very real thing. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be explicitly imposed on you. But somewhere it's seeped into our DNA. Somewhere as a woman you feel that it's great that I'm earning money, it's great that I'm going out, but I need to be available for my child. I need to ensure that, dinner is on the table at the right time, that everything is in order. So that guilt is very real where women are concerned. And honestly, I don't really know if it's, definitely it is, it's there because of social expectations from women. And like Miss was saying, it's also there because somewhere in this entire process of evolving, we've not really paused to really say that fine, women are being empowered and are evolving and are changing, and their roles and their responsibilities are changing. But then that also needs to trickle down to the opposite gender, where their roles also need to evolve and change. Unless that happens, both the genders will not be in sync with each other. And I think that's the challenge that we're facing right now. Because as women, right now for all matters, women are definitely hunting and getting the food home, and they're also cooking it, right? And they're also keeping their caves clean, and they're also ensuring that they're also having children, and they're also ensuring that children are being taught and are studying. They're also ensuring that they're watching guard out at night, keeping their home safe. So, the entire gamut of what a woman is expected to do has really increased. But that is not really trickling down to the other gender, and that's the challenge that we're facing, I feel.
And if you just take it a little further up, I mean, if you come to imagine, even the professional lives and the way they soar up is also very limited. Again, because start to see in their prime when they've just made it to a level where they can actually take on roles and positions is just when their trajectory is also taking another turn with respect to having to be present in the biological capacity of a mother. And I don't think a lot of men are asked, how are you managing your work and your child? But that first question wherein, oh, how are you going to manage your work now, comes so quickly for a woman. Or, oh, you will have to take about 3 to 4 years time to yourself because, that's the only way it's going to work for you now. And when they do come back, it comes with the conditions apply that, it's something that she's going to be now having apart from just her work. While I don't think a man is questioned on those lines ever.
And it is difficult and challenging, especially when we're talking about the professional hierarchical structure. And as Mr. said, the years when, when a woman is also expected to raise a family, to have children, those are years which are very crucial to actually build and climb on that ladder. So the minute a woman has to, stop and pause and also take care of those other things, she's actually lost the race, right? Because men have actually moved on. And that's a huge challenge, and that's very real. I mean, it's not that I'm not saying women should not have children, but it's just a reality of the way women are placed professionally and socially. And also as women then, and this is from my personal experience with a lot of friends, if they've chosen to rise professionally, they've had to make those big sacrifices. Sacrifices with either choosing not to have children or choosing not to get married, or, so there's a very huge, balance that women are expected to make. And if they need to build on one, the expectation is that they might lose out on the other. Which unfortunately is not the expectation for men at all. They're able to, kind of move along with their family life and their professional life and the responsibilities that come with both, and with no questions asked at all.
Definitely. I've often also heard my classmates say that I don't want to make a big deal out of this, or something like, I don't want to start something unnecessary. Let's not get into this. I'm not a very debatable person, or something like that. And I've noticed, whether fortunate or unfortunate, it's mostly been girls. Don't you think that this pressure to sort of keep the peace in any dynamic whatsoever, any relationship, can actually impact a woman's life and a woman's thoughts and the ideologies as well?
I think it stems largely from the way women are taught from a very young age to adjust, to accommodate, to fit in, and also to not be people who have their own mind. And I think it's all coming from there. So whether it's the need to maintain peace at home, or to be likable, or to be sociable all the time, or to look a certain way, or to just forbear. Something happens, it's okay. You must learn to adjust. You must learn to deal with it. I think all of that stems with the societal expectations of what it is to be a woman. And again, I'd go back to how unfortunate that is, because none of those are expectations that we have from men, right? So that's where the challenge is, and that's why women, like you said, more and more girls are, you hear them talk about that. More and more girls talk about how it's, bad experiences that you have, how you just don't make a deal out of them. An example could be just if you're a girl who's raised in Delhi, you would have experienced Eve teasing at some time, and how you've just developed this mechanism to ignore it, which is so sad, right? Which is sad, but which is what most girls do, because somewhere we've learned that it's okay. Hota hai, right? So that's the challenge, and that the challenge is how we have ourselves learned to behave a certain way, because as women we're expected to behave that way.
Definitely.
And again, it's very deep rooted if you see. I mean, pick up any slur, for example, it'll always be directed to a woman. Now imagine anything, any slur, any cuss word that you will have in any language. Actually, I'll stick to Hindi, for example. Will have the word woman in it in some way.
Definitely.
Right? So it says so much in terms of how it is your onus and it is upon you to take care of your izzat. And which is why sometimes this becomes as just another way of having to make sure that you don't get into anything that questions that.
Definitely. I think, talking about the slurs and all of these as well, I feel society has just a way to sort of degrade femininity. And then you get into this whole debate of how exactly do you accept the way that you are, how feminine you are, just for some simple things like liking the color pink. It can become such a debate ki whether or not I should paint my nails pink. I'm going to a formal conference. There's going to be a lot of men in it. Will they listen to me if they see me holding the microphone with pink nails on?
Yeah.
And I think that becomes so many questions and so many thoughts that men don't have to have.
A very common example could be just a woman looking nice in a certain way, and how that would make one feel about if a good looking woman is on stage, then the discussion will only be about the way she looks.
Definitely.
Or the clothes she's wearing. But you have a good looking man on the stage and the discussion will not just be about that.
Definitely.
Right? So again, that's one of the ways society looks at women. And it's very, again, unfortunate and ironic that a woman is valued, like we said, in terms of, whether her reputation or what she brings to the table. It's all very superficial, and we then connect it to how women are objectivized, how they're looked at as objects, simply because you're supposed to look a certain way, you're supposed to behave a certain way. Your role is to only add a certain respect and value to the home that you're a part of, right? Your role, yes, if you are a working person, even then your primary role is that of a caretaker, is of a mother, which are important roles. We're not denying that at any point. But we're just saying that the society and the way it looks at women then is quite disheveled.
And may I add something to this? Also, how women look at women is so important, because we are right now almost seemingly sounding like we are bashing men. But the truth of the matter is, I think we have to also question how we also operate amongst ourselves. So, while you brought up the color pink, I'd be happy to say that my husband owned the color pink with a lot of pride and would love to wear it like in and out, like something he would enjoy doing, right? So I'm coming from that place where I didn't have a problem with that, for example, but how it could be seen by another woman, and a woman could comment on that,
Definitely.
To start with, or how a woman could comment on another woman, for that matter, or the choices that this other person is making, which could be very different from her understanding of how she should be. So, feminism is complex in that way.
Definitely.
In the way patriarchy also operates is not via the men. It's also via the women, who are tools and channels in keeping them going year after year, generations after generations.
Absolutely.
In the way it carries forward.
I think, I completely agree with what you said. I feel like a lot of women also act as, protectors and safeguarders of patriarchy in itself.
Of course.
And I feel like, I'm sorry to be contradictory,
It's
but
a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on. Like, the simplest example that I can think of is a mother-in-law. She will want you to sort of follow this whole thing, and simply because she's been through that same process herself.
But why would we typecast mother-in-laws?
Yeah.
Because it's also mothers who teach their daughters
Right.
to behave a certain way, to sit
And
a
the
certain
sons.
way, and sons to behave a certain way.
Right.
So again, socially, it's very easy to make a joke about a evil mother-in-law.
Definitely.
But what about the mother who indoctrinates her daughter
Definitely.
about sitting properly, laughing, not laughing very loudly,
And to be perfect.
right? So again, this is social indoctrination, which happens in the home, I would say. And it begins at birth, when the way we behave with a little baby and we get her a little doll, and yes, there's nothing wrong with a girl child playing with another doll, but it's somewhere setting a very subtle message of what the child is expected to be when she grows up.
Definitely. I think there's also this notion that, boys are raised to be bold while girls are raised to be perfect. And to what extent do you think that, you see these things being formed in very formative years or in children from very early on? What are some examples that you can maybe share?
Rakhi, why does the bhai has to protect the didi? The didi can protect herself. And I think that should have been the culture right from the very beginning, that it could be just about mutual respect for each other on that day. And maybe tying that Rakhi only to kind of say that we both are together in this for each other as siblings, really. But even a chota wala bhaiya will be told didi ka dhyan rakhna, baahar ja rahe ho.
And how certain homes really feel bad that there's nobody to, to protect them, right? But again, going back to history, there are reasons for these celebrations and for these festivals, and they had a purpose and they had a reason. And we've lost touch with what they were made for and why it was made. And there are families that are evolving. I know of many families where Rakhi is now tied to all the siblings, irrespective of gender. So yes, we are evolving, but we definitely do have miles to go.
Definitely. I think, let's shift gears for a moment. Let's go into reflecting upon maybe some of the positive aspects of breaking away from societal norms. Maybe something that you've done in your own life where you actually felt accomplished. Doesn't have to be an award, but maybe just yourself telling you, okay, what I did here was not something they expected out of me. And you proved someone wrong, or even you proved yourself wrong. You went beyond your capabilities, beyond your comfort zones, etc. So maybe if you could have any story that is at the top of your head, or any experience where you kind of did break away these social norms and kind of gain your own experience out of it.
So I come from a very protective household, right? And it was something which was a given that I'll get married after I finish my grad, for example. And then I showed him the path. No, I'm ready to do my post-grad. And then another path got paved from there. And then after that, it was like, okay, you come back now. And I said, no, I have to work now. So I got my work on board. The point is that in this whole process, I was not contesting anything, but it's just how we were paving a path together. So my dad had a certain worldview in the way he thought that, his daughter will possibly finish studying and this is the kind of study that she'll do. And then I'm possibly going to, settle her down. And yet there was another person who was showing him the direction and he was moving along with me. So I think we both grew up in that entire process, really. It wasn't a tussle, but it was also making life choices. It was also exercising your sense of agency and then bringing up somebody who didn't see that as an option, who didn't see that something else could exist beyond that for his own daughter, while the intention was all in the right place. So it's just these really little things actually that make you who you are.
Definitely.
I could have chosen to just be, but something just kept making me go forward, and then everyone else came along.
I think as women, in every stage of our lives and our journeys, you kind of just push the boundaries a little bit. And that is liberating.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like you said, they don't have to be big achievements and accomplishments, but there are 100 zillion ways in which you push the boundaries every day. And it's important to do that.
Definitely. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. I mean, it's definitely left me thinking about a lot of things, whether it's questions that are still in my mind, very similar to what I had before, but maybe a lot of more depth to what, it is like to be maybe an older woman when
No, we wear it as a badge and we take it as a thank you, Disha.
No, but I think it's quite fulfilled the purpose that we wanted to serve today, which is leave the audience maybe with a little more to think about, and maybe a taste of what it's actually like when you think about these really intrinsic questions and when you actually have a conversation rather than just ponder upon them yourself. So if I could just ask you to leave the audience with maybe just a piece of advice, or maybe just even a little thought for them to ponder over, for them to maybe have conversations with their friends about it.
Question things. I think that's about it.
Yes.
Don't take them as a given. If there is something that's not setting right with you, you have every reason to question it and wait for when it just feels right here.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and it's just very important to be your own person. It's very important to not accept things just because you're supposed to accept them. And that doesn't make you a difficult person or a bad person. It's okay to stand on your own and say, I'm going to do things differently, simply because I don't see any reason why I should do it the way everybody else has done it. Be true to yourself, and that's the most important thing.
Amazing. So I'm extremely grateful, Ms. Shreya and Ms. Hargun, for both of you lending your time to join us here
Thank you.
today.
It's a pleasure, Nisha.
I think our conversation is overlapped with so many of SheSight's articles about the other side of success when we talk about a woman, or even the stereotypes and restrictions that women face in comparison to the other gender. I think we spoke a lot about being a modern female today and how, even with that, you have so many internal battles that you're fighting every day. I feel really grateful to include this conversation in the series of the podcast that we'll be launching at SheSight. A feature story of this podcast will also be available on SheSight's magazine. Thank you both, and thank you to everyone who's watching.